Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. We are in Studio 2 at the moment.
Studio 2. We've got two studios.
Yeah, our backup studio, because obviously we had a couple of issues during the week which we were going to talk about with, malicious damage that was done to Studio 1, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for the moment, we'll go over and get the communication channel, Steve, in our Studio 2 backup.
Right, okay. We have info at OYMIreland.com. We also have the chat facility on the website as well, so if you're listening to us on the TNS stream or on the UWS stream and you want to stick in a few questions or comments, just navigate to OYMRadio.com or OYMIreland.com and you will see the link on the left. Click here for live chat. You can log in there and you can ask questions to our guests this evening. You can also have a chat amongst yourselves quietly if you fancy it. And if you want to call, we can call us on the landline. I was going to say if you want to call us on the landline, but no, because we're in the Studio 2 and we don't have a phone line in Studio 2, so apologies for that one.
No problem at all. Well, it's just a case that we're in Studio 2 and there was a couple of things that happened during the week, but just a couple of things that we want to touch base on. One thing was a big thank you to TNS Radio, Vin and Ducky, for getting us out of a tight spot. One of our LCD monitors actually went down during the week, dead as a dodo. And we got a temporary lend of a monitor from Ducky and Vin, so thanks a lot to them two guys. If anybody does happen to have a spare LCD screen or one that's available, please contact us and let us know. It'd be much appreciated, and we'd be able to use it in the studio. That'd be fantastic there.
Other than that, we'd have to go out and buy one.
Yeah, and the way things are at the moment, you know the way it is, Steve, at the moment. The other thing on our list, would you believe, I actually was going to print out the script, but because of everything going on, I forgot the script. But I remember a couple of things that's on the actual, that's on the list. The other thing was there was a massive austerity march in Dublin yesterday, obviously for the property tax and, saying no to the people coming out from Europe. I believe it's the Troika, as far as I know. Unfortunately, we couldn't get down because I was in the process of sorting out a few things. But I hear that the march went very well, and as usual, the media underreported the actual figures. Now, the media were talking about 5,000, but I know people were talking about 20,000, so I'm actually not too sure. What have you heard, Steve?
To be completely honest, I haven't heard anything bar what I've seen floating around the internet. I did see a picture of, I don't know what street it was, I couldn't actually make out the street, but it was covered, a sea of people, and they were all holding up red cards. I'm guessing it was a red card to the government or something like that. But it's funny because I was only talking to my wife about it yesterday, and I was saying that when the media do report it, you may bet your bottom dollar that they'll underestimate the amount that was the crowd that was there, and plus they'll get it in somewhere that there was a little bit of violence, and as I think we've said it before, and I know you've said it, Alan, that the trouble never starts until the law enforcement arrives. They generally provoke it. But other than that, no, I haven't heard. I mean, as regards mainstream media, I don't bother me backside watching it at all. So I rely wholly on the alternative, or as we call it, the new media.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we should be doing, listening to the new media. But there you go. Right, okay, Steve, how's your week?
My week's fine. Are you enjoying your tea there, yeah?
I am indeed. Thanks for a cup of tea as well. That's brilliant in the studio too.
You get tea in the studio too.
But, by the way, if people are wondering why there's only one of us on the OYM chat facility, I'm monitoring the TNS radio chat and Steve is monitoring the OYM chat. So we are kind of covering all bases at the moment, so everything's hunky-dory. But sorry, Steve, how's your week?
My week is fine. The usual mix of this, that and a bit of the other as well. No, it's. I've just been kind of waiting, reading some posts on Facebook, and I know I sent you a message the other evening as well of something else that I've seen on Facebook. I'm not exactly 100% sure of what it's all about, but it's supposed to be an alternative to Facebook for people involved in the truth movement. If you want to call it a movement, well, I mean, I'm not saying that that's what we are, but you know, you kind of have to put a label on things so people understand it. But awarenessact.com, it seemingly looks like Facebook when Facebook first hit the internet many moons ago, and it's predominantly for people involved in the so-called truth movement. I had a look at it, I checked it out, and I registered just for the crack to see what it was about. And it is kind of like Facebook, but there's a lot more. Well, the people on it are a lot more. They're kind of, you know, they're like you and I. So you're not kind of posting something up and then people are coming along and slating it and saying, oh, there's a load of this, that, and the other. If you post something up there, the people who are on this, they seem to be kind of intelligent people, and they will accept it and, you know, probably research it, or if they've researched it already, they'll happily send you back a little bit of information. That's all I found out about it now, and say I registered about 2 nights ago. So I'll see where it goes. I mean, at the end of the day, I did say to one of the chaps that was on that forum, or whatever you want to call it, he did send me a private message, and he said, do you think this is legit? And I sent him back and said, I don't know. It could be legit, or it could be just simply a way of, let's say, Facebook, or whoever's behind Facebook, or whoever's behind the people behind Facebook, whatever. It could be just another media site, social media site, set up by them to get all the truthers off Facebook and have us all, you know, push us into a little corner and say, well, okay, now we know where they are and we know exactly who they all are, and we have them all rounded up like cattle. I don't know. But see how it goes. Say I've registered. That's awarenessact.com. Check it out anyway. It's completely free to register. It's same as Facebook. They do have one thing that Facebook doesn't have, and that's a dislike button. I think I heard people looking for that on Facebook as well, so you could dislike posts. But other than that, it's just been the usual. You know, kind of any links that we've received during the week, just kind of checking them out and all, and watching the chemtrails. And actually, there was a link there I watched just this morning about chemtrails. A lady, I think I got it from a David Icke website. She was involved in the military in the US of A, and she became privy to a lot of what's going on and all the chemicals that were being used by the military, and she was kind of surprised at some of the stuff that was coming in, like the barium and the strontium. So she kind of, you know, reached a point where she had to either continue on what she was doing and keep her mouth shut, or expose it. When she wanted to when she did ask questions about it to her superiors, she was basically told if she pursued the line of questioning and, you know, she wanted to go further about it, her job would be on the line, and plus they would lock her up for 120 days in solitary confinement, and who then was going to look after her 5-year-old daughter. So she decided to keep her mouth shut for another period of time. Eventually she left, and she's going around now. She's a whistleblower. I can't remember her name at this moment in time, but I will get it and I'll stick it up on the chat facility for anyone who's interested. I'll put a link up to the video. That's pretty much, you know, that's my week in a nutshell.
Okay.
Well, I work as well, like, you know, so I'm a busy boy. How's your week?
Okay, well, just to say, we actually are planning to have 2 guests on tonight. Aisling, the girl against fluoride, and a lady called Seven, who has information regarding the bombings in London 7/7. But unfortunately, Aisling is not online at the moment. I don't know where Aisling is at the moment. But we do have Seven going to be on now in a few minutes. But just a couple of things from my side. For some of you will obviously know already. I don't know whether you probably heard me talking about it. I was on UWS Radio. They had the marathon yesterday, and I had a quick mention about it. But during the week, last week, I had 2 antennas stolen from my van, and also somebody maliciously actually cut my broadband cable at the side of the house. Now, basically, I have an outside antenna. It's a wireless internet service at the side of the house, and basically the cable goes down the wall into the house, and somebody maliciously jumped up on the wall and got obviously something sharp and cut the cable, but didn't just cut the cable, they took a chunk of the cable out. Wow. So I couldn't join it together. So obviously I don't know why, I don't know what the reason was. Obviously when something like that happens, it's because you're saying something that they don't want you to say. Now, I can't really go into any detail about it because the police are actually investigating it at the moment. Because it was a malicious attack, that's really what they're really concerned about, because the person actually came onto your property, and obviously the theft as well. So I can't really talk about it, but you go through so many emotions, don't you, when something like this happens?
Yeah, and you want to kill someone, and then you want to kill someone.
Yeah, I know. But I just feel sorry for this person. If I'm broadcasting or saying something and somebody isn't happy with it, then by all means they can ring in, go on the chat, or come and see me if they know where I live.
Exactly. Obviously, if they do know where you live.
Yeah.
But come and knock on your door. You're not an unreasonable person.
No, I'm happy to talk. If they're not happy over something, I'm happy to talk about it. But to cowardly go and do something like that. So I have kind of, I am telling everybody, because I don't know whether this is, a local person or whether it was from somebody outside the area. But I am telling everybody, because if this happens to somebody else, for example, then obviously, people in the community need to know about it. But as I say, I just feel sorry for the person, because, I just think it's just sad that somebody has to go to that level to do something when they could easily just talk to me about if there's any issues that they're not happy about, if there's a reason for it.
And just to ask you, there was any other properties in the area touched or vandalised?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay, so I mean, well, it was you were targeted, so.
I was targeted because it was a dark night and it was raining. So somebody must have known that that was a broadband cable coming down the side of the house. So they obviously had to be aware of it. But as I say, I can't really go into more detail because the police are investigating at the moment. And that's really it. I'm disappointed that if somebody had a problem with what we're saying, that they didn't come and talk to me about it. That they had to resort to doing something like that.
Well, I mean, if it's someone that has a problem with something that you're saying it's OYM that's really saying it. If someone has a problem with that, I mean, we still have free speech as far as I'm aware, and rather than do something malicious, why would they not just, if it's because you're running OYM, why should they could just easily set up their own internet radio station and go against OYM rather than taking it personally, because I mean at the end of the day, you're not saying that everything that OYM says is right. We just do a little bit of research. We find what we know to be the truth, or what we perceive to be the truth, and we send it out and we educate people and we get people on to discuss it, and experts in their field. But at the end of the day, it's OYM as an organisation, if you like. It's not you personally. So I mean, for someone to attack you or your property, I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was
knock on the door, or if they don't like what you're saying, set up their own internet radio station.
I'll do it. Well, it was definitely to stop communication, because the two antennas were nicked with two radio antennas, and obviously the broadband. So they were trying to stop, but I mean it was a kind of feeble kind of way to do it, because I mean you just get back online and get back up and running.
You can't stop the truth.
You can't stop the truth, and we're here in Studio 2 at the moment. And we're broadcasting live again, a regular show on Sunday. So I don't know. But anyway, listen, let's move on. It's, as I say, it's with the police. The police are investigating it at the moment, and I can't say any more than that for obvious reasons. But so there you go. So anyway, the guest that we're going to have on tonight is a lady called Seven for Justice. Well, that's the name we have on our Skype anyway, but I'm sure she will give us the details if she wants to give us her name. Now, it was kind of very quick that we brought Seven in, because it was only a few minutes before the show, so we didn't get the full details. But I believe that Seven has information regarding the 7/7 bombings in London, and Tony Farrell, who was on our show, and he was an intelligence analyst for the South Yorkshire Police, until they let him go or they fired him. Basically, he has looked at the evidence that Seven has, and he's confirmed that it's legitimate. But what we'll do is we'll bring Seven in and we'll talk to her and we'll find out what the details are. So without further ado, Seven, good evening to you. How are you doing?
Good evening to you guys. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me on your show.
That's okay. Yeah, thanks a lot for coming on. We obviously there's a lot of background noise there, Seven. Do you know what that is by any chance?
Is it gone now? Is it better now?
It's getting better, yeah.
Okay. I had a cable in, but we've taken it out just to increase the volume, but it should be okay now. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better. There's still a bit of a buzzing noise in the background. Is that a laptop microphone you're using?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, they're not the best. They kind of pick up everything.
All right, okay. Does it help if I do that? I'm moving something now. Does that help at all?
Okay, well, it's better. We can hear you. That's better, yeah. The sound has died down a little bit, so that's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, and thanks for coming on the show. It was Tony, ZPE, that told us about you and the evidence that you have regarding the 7/7 bombings. So do you want to give us, as we only know a little bit, do you want to give us an introduction of who you are and what you know and what you've been doing, and we'll take it from there?
Okay. First of all, I want to say a big shout out to Tony Z and Kate of synchronicityradio.com and Critical Mass for giving me this opportunity. Basically, my background is media. I have been in the entertainment industry for the best part of 30 years. And in relation to Tony Farrell and I have compiled a report. Over the last 6 months, we've been basically putting together a report based on my case, which spans back to 2003. Now, just to give you a little bit of information about myself and my case, in 2003, I was targeted by a media-based cartel. And when I say media-based, it's actually media law firms as well as media bosses that are in various different media corporations. And I'm going to give you their names in a little while, but I'll just give you a bit of background first. Yes, I was targeted in 2003. I actually had created a multimedia platform and set about trying to protect it. The platform that I devised actually came out of the fact that my brother had died at a very young age. I was already in the entertainment industry, and I decided I wanted to do something in entertainment to address health and fitness and make it sort of sexy and contemporary and, revolutionize how we perceive these subjects. So I spent many years doing research after my brother died, he died in 1992. But I spent many years doing research, and that sort of resulted in me creating this multimedia platform. Now, in 2003, I wanted to basically license it out to mainstream media outlets and contacted the Law Society. At that particular time, I didn't realize the level of corruption going on in the Law Society, unfortunately. But on the basis of jurisdiction, in relation to where I live, they gave me the name of a legal law firm dealing with these matters, media law firm, called Russell's. Now, they're based in London, West 1, and they said that they'd be able to help me in the protection of my documents and intellectual property rights. So, being not knowing what goes on within these organizations and the level of organized crime that some of these firms are engaged in, I actually contacted them and had a meeting with Russell's about the protection of my documents, my multimedia platform. What actually transpired is that they tipped off various networks that I was some kind of golden goose who had developed something that was potentially worth a hell of a lot of money, and we're talking a colossal amount of money is what happened.
So are you a programmer or a developer, or how did you develop this platform?
Well, basically, I'm sort of a conceptual inventor, so I devise concepts that are to be marketed, that tap into the mainstream consciousness on various different levels. Now, because I was aware that there were problems with health and addressing the issue with health for lots of people that had watched mainstream television, there wasn't anything that addressed these subjects. And I was around dance. I'm also a musician. I also dance, and I knew lots of different people. And so in 2002, in fact, just before I engaged in these meetings with Russells and others, who I'll tell you about in a minute, in 2002, I myself became ill. And I was at home for about a month. I just had a tonsil problem. But while I was at home, I was flicking through the channels, and I thought there is nothing on these networks to address people with illness. And I thought it would be a perfect time to launch the concept that I had devised. And so that took me up till 2003, and this is the period that I set about wanting to do deals for it. Now, my background, to kind of answer your question, is basically creative. It's sound and vision. I'm also a music producer, composer as well, and I have sessions from quite a few big artists in my time as a guitarist. But actually, I do devise, and still do so, devise and develop innovative concepts. And I've sort of got some, I've had some publicity about that in the past. But not to blow my own trumpet at all. I mean, I'm kind of more on the alternative side anyway, particularly now so, because mainstream media is entirely corrupt. They're notorious, unfortunately.
Well, if you're good at something, then promote yourself. I think in this society we are very, if I give you a list, if I give you a piece of paper and I put a line down the centre and I said, right, tell me your bad parts and your good parts, I guarantee that bad part list will be longer than the good part. We're afraid to promote ourselves because people think, oh, they're arrogant, they've got an ego, and I think that's a bad mistake. I think if you are good at something, you should say that, yeah, I'm pretty good at doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's a very good point. But it's also good to remain humble. I mean, it's an industry full of egos and megalomaniacs and people that think they're above the law, above God. And that's kind of behind some of the atrocities that we now see. There are two extremes with that, isn't there? There's basically humility and, standing in your power. Yeah, I can do this and I'm competent at it. And then the other end of the spectrum is, absolute psychopaths that, think they can do whatever they like.
Totally.
So it's always about balance, it's always about balance.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I always say to people, look, ego, is very dangerous. I mean, I know it's part of us and everything else. And like you, I was a musician as well. And I always say to people, look, you can go in the bathroom when nobody else is around and look in the mirror and go, I'm fantastic. But when you leave the bathroom, close the door, go back and being humble.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree that to kind of undermine yourself, I think you give people your power in a way. I mean, you set the value, you set the benchmark for how people are going to treat you. Not always, I mean, but generally, if we should basically be able to stand in who we are and have confidence in that. We all have the right to life. And that's, in a way, those values have steadied me to get through what I've been through, which is spanning almost 10 years now. My journey as a targeted individual has been 10 years. And, it has, I've always been a humble person anyway. But at the same time, when you have people that are trying to erase you from history, erase you, to be acknowledged for your work, erase you, because I later went on to take these corrupt organizations to court and won in 2006. That was covered up, so they erase you again. And so basically, it's a life of kind of being an invisible person, even though your work is global and it's celebrated and it's racking in trillions of pounds. You're basically pushed to the side so that nobody will ever know about your existence. So in that journey, you have to discover, you have to develop your your power to come forward and say no, you know, despite the massive media machine, and we're talking a massive media machine has been behind shutting me down.
Yeah.
Scrubbing machines where you basically have people that go out, anything that goes up about me gets erased. If I try and go on a radio show, the show gets taken down. There's a whole operation to silence me. And even when this report was done on Tony Farrell, there's been a number of agents. There's a guy called Mark Windows and Dom who were basically going out literally way over and beyond to try to discredit me and call me a liar, call Tony Farrell a liar, and anybody that supports us. And, you know, this is the kind of thing that you come up against. And when you come up against that, you have to let go of your ego, because you will experience persecution, you will experience ridicule, particularly if you know a truth that potentially has the power, like this truth, which I'm going to tell you about, which has the power to potentially shut down the establishment. If we base what happened with the News of the World and the hacking scandal, this one involves the murder of innocent people to cover up all kinds of skullduggery and corruption. And when you have that kind of magnitude, you are up against people that will make you have to go within yourself and say, it doesn't matter what people think about me. In some ways, this is not even about me anymore. You know, I'm just a sort of instrument of a catalyst for something major that has happened, and I've had to, regardless of what anybody says, I've had to sit firm in my truth and you know, be guided by the fact that it is a truth. I have experienced this. I have nothing to gain. It's been absolute hell for me. I've been living a nightmare. And, you know, regardless of how many lies and the policy of lie and deny and cover up and murder people, regardless of all of those things, you've got to rise above it and put your ego to the side. And I've always believed that truth has a vibration, and people know when somebody's telling the truth. Lie to be deceitful also has a vibration. You can just look into somebody's eyes, or you can feel if somebody's bullshitting you, you know. And I have used that truth to get me through some very, very nasty situations, you know. And since Tony Farrell's report has become breaking news in the UK, I've got trolls and shills and agents coming out all over the place. And the amazing thing is that these people pride themselves of being truthers, of being in the movement of truth. But then you find out that they were never really behind truth at all, you know, so it's quite shocking situation. But here we go, you know, so reality is, for me, it doesn't really matter whether people believe me or they don't believe me, or they ridicule me or persecute me. It is a truth. What I'm about to tell you is an absolute truth. And it's a truth that belongs to the public, because a lie has been told about it, and lives have been taken to cover it up and to protect those who are part of Masonic groups and brotherhoods or whatever, you know. And from my point of view, they're just people like myself, and right now they're very afraid. So, and I understand that, you know, if you've done such horrors, I don't think they ever banked on me ever getting to the stage where it would come out, you know. I don't think they anticipated this, but the level and campaign and witch hunt they've used to shut me down, I think they were expecting me to be on a park bench somewhere with a couple of cans of cider.
I know what you mean. Would you see yourself as target? Would you see yourself as a targeted individual?
I am a targeted individual.
Okay.
And I'm a survivor. I call myself a survivor.
Okay.
And so, I mean, for anybody that doesn't understand that term out there, you should Google gang stalking or domestic terror. Yeah. Or organized stalking or anything like that. So basically, just to go back and give the listeners a background to how I became a targeted individual. after I went to the law firm in Russell's law firm, I spoke to a man called Christopher Gossage, who was a clerk there at the time. And I showed him my documents. He signed confidentiality before I got him to see them, because I knew intuitively, and because of my research into scheduling, I did a lot of research to ascertain whether mainstream media had anything like I had developed. And like I said, when I was at home sifting through channels, they had nothing. And then when I went into schedules for the last probably 20 years of broadcasting, there was nothing remotely like I had created. And so when I went to see Christopher Gossage, he was literally salivating. He was so shocked that by what I had created. I said, do you know companies that would want to go into deals to license this? And he was like, hell yeah, he was basically almost jumping up and down at the potential market value of what I'd created. And what I had created was to make, how can I say, contemporary and, sexy, if you like, and revolutionize the way that we address health and fitness. Now, my work, basically, Christopher Gossage tipped off all the networks that I had created this thing. At the time, I was 38, and I looked probably about 19. I looked very, very young, freakishly so, and he wasn't aware of that, and just thought that I was young, green, and naive, and had created this thing. And basically, he got all in touch with various networks, large networks like Endemol and various other people. And from that point onwards, I realized, because of the level of enthusiasm, I thought, well, I'm going to stop communicating via phone, and I'm going to just email him so that I had a record of the negotiation process, so that I had proof of what was being discussed. Because obviously, if you've been in that industry, you know that people are less than honorable, and pieces of paper, even though they sign them, they don't necessarily always honor what they've actually promised.
Okay.
So I actually started receiving telephone calls to attend a big meeting at NTL's Felton facilities by a man called Richard Hanna. Now, Richard Hanna was representing NTL. NTL were basically a large telecommunications company who had gone bankrupt. Now, I didn't actually know that they'd gone bankrupt at the time that I was being pursued to attend these meetings, because I was kind of reluctant. As far as I was concerned, I had very clear vision. I'd already had a team of people that I'd put together. So I wasn't really interested in people as such. My only interest was to license out the productions with using my team, of course, who I'd handpick for the project. So anyway, I basically attended a meeting on the 11th of November 2003 at NTL's Felton facilities. And the meeting, who was in attendance in the meeting was a lady called Helen Mary Alexander, who was representing a company called Scottish Media Groups. Now, very important to note that NTL are actually have since changed their name to Virgin Media, so they're more known today as Virgin Media. In the scale of this, quite a few of the companies have changed their names. And also Scottish Media Groups have changed their name to STV, Scottish TV. So Helen Mary Alexander, prior to her becoming part of Scottish TV, she was working for the BBC. She had a long track record of working with the BBC and being the commissioner, head of factual broadcasting. So she was in attendance at the meeting with somebody called Jim Manson, who was also representing Scottish TV. And basically, to cut a long story short, Helen Alexander and Jim Manson, they waltzed off with my documents. They basically stole my material. And I attended the meeting with someone called Lisa Parney, who was a legal graduate, who witnessed, because they were signing the contracts. But what happened was that Helen, once she got hold of the documents, they basically had a sort of selling frenzy, if you like. And we got wind of an email which was dated prior to the actual meeting, which was on my command, unleash sales hell, meaning basically as soon as they get my documents, they were to be converted and sold all over the world, which is what happened. Now, the interesting thing about MTL was they were bankrupt because they'd loaned money from a Japanese investor to build these huge Felton facilities. They're probably some of the biggest broadcasting facilities in the UK. They deal with satellite and all sorts of things. And when we arrived there, they were completely empty. They had built these digital facilities, and on the basis of actually promoting sports, but they lost the deal to Sky Network, and so they were left with these facilities and they didn't have anything to broadcast. So when they realized that I had created this multimedia platform to address health in a new way, there was a plan that was underway even before I got to the actual meeting to steal the documents, convert them, and to turn them into literally hundreds of television shows. And this is exactly what happened. One after the other, by December, I started seeing my work advertised on television as a whole list of productions. Now, if anybody wants to have a look at that, if you go into the report, the Farrell report, and it's www.thefarrellreport.net. And if you go into the actual report, you will see copies of the affidavit, which is actually in the appendices, and also, the actual affidavit from the court case is, and it lists all the television shows and productions that came from my stolen documents. And what you will see is literally back to back, one after the other, a colossal, I mean, I've lost count, to be honest, but I know that the work was sold in 150 countries. And some of the work is known as, you might know it as Strictly Come Dancing, You Are What You Eat. In America, it's Dancing with Stars, Dancing on Ice. I mean, the list it's a massive catalogue of TV productions that went out back to back from the documents, because one of the ways that they make their money is from spin-offs. So if they get a concept, what they do is they rinse it out. They make spin-off after spin-off and, version after version, and they basically sell it to all these different networks. So when I saw that my work was being sold without my permission or consent, we immediately rallied to try to get hold of Ellen Alexander to get her to cease the trading. And I tried to contact my lawyers from Russell's in order to get them to stop the trading, because I had actually become Russell's client specifically to protect the intellectual property rights. So the fact that these, Helen was selling my work and they were doing nothing about it was very telling. Now, when we tried to contact Russell's, they completely ignored me, even though I was on record as their client. I had a client, letters of client and instruction. I had letters of client care. I was a client of theirs. For them to just terminate the contract without even discussing it, not putting it into writing, was very telling.
Okay.
So I went to other lawyers, and they said, well, you've got to sue Russell's because that's absolutely out of order. I went to see a guy called Tony Marriott from another media firm as soon as I saw my work all over the place. And I showed him the evidence. As I said, I had a long paper trail. I had all the emails about the negotiations for my work. I had signed contracts. I had a paper trail from, all my research and conversations, all the emails, etc. So there was hard prima facie evidence to show that what was being sold belonged to me. And once I did that, actually what happened was my house was put under surveillance. And that's when the targeting began, literally almost immediately. We tried to get in contact with Helen Alexander and asked her, we sent her emails, which I've produced copies of for the courts, and to tell her to stop the trading and to return my property, but she refused to do anything. She there was a lot of money involved. And that's what we were told. We were told by this lawyer. He said, well, do you realize how much money is involved in this? He said, there are big companies that have invested in this. And, they're bigger than you. There's nothing you can do about it. And I said, you've got to be kidding. This is my work, which I've created on the back of the fact that my brother died. How could these people just take my work and just sell it? It was absolutely, just complete abuse. And so I was really infuriated by it, that these people could just take your years and years of labor, because it wasn't just an idea. This was hard labor. I spent hours on the computer every night to the point where I actually had, what do you call that, when your hands get stiff?
Oh, that's RSI, repetitive strain injury.
Yes. So my fingers, my fingers were sore, swollen from all the typing. I was staying up all night. How could these people just take it and just sell it? It was just like, you must be joking. Who do you think you're playing with? And so I reported them, myself and Lisa, we reported them to the Met Police, to Paddington Police in London, my local police station, because I lived in central London, and I had to go to the nearest police station at the time, which happens to be called Paddington Green Police Station. And initially they said, because it was very close to Christmas, they said, you've got to come back. So eventually we went back in January and was given a crime reference number and were told that CID would be in contact. We waited and waited, and of course CID never made any contact. But what happened was I started getting death threats over the phone, and I started being followed by these transit vans. Everywhere I went, I just noticed that outside, a transit van that had been outside my house earlier that day was now outside the place that I was, For instance, if I went to visit a friend, I'd look outside the window, and my friend and I would look outside the window and notice the same van was now outside her house. And this just became, it increased. It got really, really blatant, and it got very aggressive. And there were instances when, on one occasion, I went to visit my brother with my mother. And when we came outside my brother's house, the van was outside, and it had a couple of guys with balaclavas on. And as we walked down the street, they were tailing us, and they were making like slit your throat signs to me, like driving slowly beside us and making slit your throat signs to me. That's the kind of thing that was going on.
That's mad. And that's just, even to kind of comprehend someone actually doing that is just madness.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, madness.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I couldn't understand what was happening. I'm just an ordinary person, and I have a normal life. To suddenly be thrust into this situation where I've got people with balaclavas making slit your throat signs. I was so much shocked. My hair fell out. I went from, a healthy sort of size 10, 8. I'm quite a fit person, obviously, because of the fact that I'm involved in fitness and stuff. I do yoga, so it's very fit. So I went to 6 stone. I went down to like a skeleton. My hair fell out. It was just the shock of it. It was just so enormous. And when I went to see my doctor, when he saw me, he said it had happened to his daughter before as well. So I was amazed that people would go to such extremes, Anyway, as time went on, so this is basically early 2004. So as I started becoming stalked and followed, I had to go to the police station on a regular basis. And I was trying to get the police to, see the witnesses, because there were witnesses. There were I had a production team involved. So it wasn't just myself. Obviously, I was the copyright owner. I am the copyright owner, and I'm the one that devised it. But as I said, I put a team together, and so it wasn't just me. There were a number of witnesses, and in fact, 14 witnesses produced evidence for the case, which I won in 2006. But just to continue on, this escalated, the kind of abuse that I've mentioned escalated to people showing up on my property, guys showing up and pretending that I owed council tax. They'd create these fake, fictitious council tax demands for like hundreds of pounds, and they'd show up something like 3 times a day and demanding money from me. And so I went to Westminster City Council, who are my local council, and showed them these demands and said, why are these men turning up at my property asking me for, thousands of pounds? And they looked on the system and they said, well, you don't owe anything. This is ridiculous. So they put a notice on the system to say, this woman doesn't owe you any money, terminate bailiffs or whatever. And she contacted the bailiff company. It was a company called Equator and Newland, who were hiring these kind of thugs to come to my house. So I thought, okay, now the Westminster City Councils, they've contacted these guys. They'll leave me alone. No. They didn't leave me alone. Not only did they not leave me alone, it just got worse until these guys started threatening me. When I rang them up, it was complete violence. I don't even want to shout the way that they shouted on the radio, because I don't want to distort the airwaves.
But it's a family show anyway, so we try and avoid any swear words as much as we can.
No, I wouldn't. I don't swear anyway. As a principle, I actually don't. I have done, but as I said, the circumstances have made me. You really have to dig deep into yourself and look at all aspects of yourself and not have any alignment with evil, in any shape or form. So I no longer swear, actually. But although I do get extremely angry.
Well, we do. We do, don't we?
Yes, well, naturally. So this basically morphed. I had these guys showing up at my home, and then my home was broken into and bugged. The door was battered, and this became a way of life and has been for the last 10 years. But basically going into 2004, I basically realized that as it increased, that my life was in danger, because the death threats became more and more aggressive as time went on. And not only was that happening, but there was another aspect to this, which was that they were actually making TV shows about what they were doing to me in real life. And that aspect of it was extremely sinister. I was not aware of this sort of thing beforehand, but have since become, something of, quite learned on the subject, unfortunately. But basically, the first thing that we saw was a program called Hustle. Some of the listeners might know this show. It was released in 2004 by the BBC, and it depicts 4 or 5 central characters, and the characters are actually the same people that conned me, but they've been dramatized. And when I saw it initially, they had this announcement, you get something for nothing, the con is on, and all this stuff. And so something within inside me resonated to say, hold on a minute, what is this? So I went onto the website, and lo and behold, I saw everything that was done to me on this website. And it was unbelievable. And they have this whole section of how to con people. You've got long cons and short cons, and how you select somebody to be conned, and that they've got fixers, police, judges, all sorts of people. I mean, I could not believe what I was seeing, and it was just shocking to me. And from that point onwards, this became completely consistent. It just went on from there. So the next thing that happened was, another example of that was my name, which my full name is actually Charles Seven, and some people call me Charlie Seven. And as I explained to you earlier, I'm also a musician and have been for many years, and have sessioned for some, quite well-known people like Robert Palmer and others. And so when I saw there was a band created called Charlie Seven, now people, when they saw the advertisements, they thought it was me and went along to find a blonde young lady with my name. And when we looked at the website, they had this album that they were creating, which was called Chasing Victory, a Not So Tragic Cover-Up. And this is the kind of gloating that was going on. These people were lauding it. It's not so much that, they've done the crime, but they're actually gloating and laughing about what they're doing in real life to people. And that's the kind of sinister behavior that is really going on within mainstream media. This is a cult. It's not just, white-collar criminals who, got lucky. They met someone who they felt didn't have any backup to protect themselves from being conned or whatever. This is much deeper than that. This is people that are actually ritualistically engaging in these practices. And this is something that went on and on and on. So running up to 2000, August of 2004, I was getting it on every front. My emails were hacked. My mail was being stolen. I was getting death threats over the phone. Everywhere I went, I was being followed. I mean, it was just a nightmare. These guys were showing up at my house, still with fictitious council tax debts, even though Westminster City Council had told them to stop harassing me. They just continued. And so it became more and more and more dangerous, to the point where I realized I've got to do something. So I issued legal proceedings myself on the 5th of August of 2004 in the Chancery Division at the Royal Courts of Justice, London Strand. And at the time I kind of thought, well, if it goes into court, they might realise that, they've got to back off. But that's when it got really dangerous. And from that point onwards, it became an extremely dangerous, very aggressive, very violent situation. Now, during the running up to my case being heard, because I was supposed to have my case heard in July of 2005, between July and August, the case was due to be heard in the Royal Courts of Justice. Now, running up to, as we were getting nearer and nearer, things became more and more violent, more and more aggressive, and the threats that I was getting, I just knew that these were not just threats. These people would actually try, they were likely to carry it out in some way. I could just see it.
Yeah.
And the solicitors that, one of the solicitors that was involved, basically had their lawyers send me a letter out, and the reference number on the actual letter is dead. These things are actually there are copies of these documents all inside the report. There's lots of photographic proof and evidence of everything that I'm saying here.
Okay, hence why you got Tony involved to verify the actual documentation.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, he's been an intelligence analyst for 17 years and is extremely experienced and extremely principled man. I mean, he's a Christian. He has the highest level of integrity. He's actually a very, very beautiful, beautiful human being. And, I owe him a great deal. I really do, because he's put his neck on the line to do this. And it's been... he's had to experience the life of a targeted individual in the process. It's been 6 months. It took us 6 months, and we released the report just last week, but it was finished in March. And he will tell you himself of being surveillanced and being followed, and some of the things that he's experienced as a a result in being associated with me. But just to recap and backtrack a little bit so that you can get a little bit more background to the case itself.
Okay. We have a quick question if you want to take it from our people on chat, Steve.
Yeah, there's a question in here just in relation to what you were speaking of there. And it's from Crown Copyright, one of our regular listeners here on OYM. And he says, why didn't they just pay you off, or should I say, offer you huge sums of money?
Well, that's a question that people ask me and I ask myself. But as I said before, there's another element to this, which is, I suspect it's not just about money. I mean, there's a great deal of money involved, and you will see from the actual documentation how much money. We're talking about trillions of pounds. You've got to understand that these people have been doing this for many, many years to lots of people that are, some of them probably are not here to speak for themselves anymore. But the whole entertainment industry only survives on the back of ideas from other people. And if you have a case like mine, you actually are opening the can of worms for them admitting what they've done to numerous other people. So from that point of view, I think they didn't want this to come out. Also, the programs in question are all household family names. And, that's why I created them. I created them so that the whole family could get involved in watch and be inspired to get fit using dance, just being conscious about what you're eating. Like I said, there's a program, You Are What You Eat, 10 years younger. There's lots of programs that are to inspire those things, designed for the family experience. And for these people to let the public know that that's what's behind it is something that they don't want to be known. Also, when you've got this amount of money involved, you're talking about criminal activities, you're talking about money laundering, and it's much bigger than that. And I also think that the type of people that I've met and the people involved in this is that they actually think that they've got a divine right to take whatever they want. They don't feel like they have to pay anybody. They feel that, they're basically the owners of the planet. And not only that, is that this money is funding things like New World Order and, Agenda 21 and sort of global incentives. So they're not about to let somebody who's a humanitarian, who has values of peace and love, to have such amount of money, because obviously I would be promoting things that increase and foster and inspire love and peace and those things. And these people don't agree with that. They have a completely different philosophy on life, which is anti-love, anti-peace, hatred, and the enslavement of other human beings. So to answer your question, that's why they would never, they're fighting tooth and nail, not only to never pay me, but to call me a liar. Recently someone stated that I was a paranoid schizophrenic. I mean, it's just a joke. It's so absolutely twisted. But what happened was, because as much as it is, sort of a copyright case, it was also contract and various other parts of law, criminal law, theft, etc. But one of the things that people don't realize is that this is actually, it's a covert slave trade. And what I mean by that is, once my documents were stolen, when they realized that they had were onto a winner, and they'd identified somebody that had the ability to create something that would be, able to resonate on a wide scale with lots of people demographically. Once they recognized that, that was part of the targeting program and the targeting machine. So my house was bugged, my phones were tapped, and I was put on a surveillance program. But most people would assume that program was just to prevent me and obstruct the legal proceedings, which it of course was. But there's another dimension to this. A lot of the targeting and the surveillance is being turned into transcripts, and those transcripts are being turned into more television programs, plot lines. So we'll find private conversations that we're having as actually showing up on radio shows. You know, these mainstream radio shows. I've heard my, conversations be turned into topics of the day on Vanessa Feltz's show. And so, you've got this whole other arm to the surveillance going on, and it's a monetary-based industry. It's a covert industry that runs kind of parallel to the mainstream industry, but it's not seen, it's not heard of. And basically, people that are creative, whether you be a fashion designer, whether you be, a script writer or what have you, whatever it may be, if you have something that's sellable and that can be turned into revenue on a mass scale, you will become targeted. And so, for instance, people in St. Martin's School of Fashion Design, if someone is basically highlighted as a very talented person in that organization, they'll put that person's home under surveillance. They'll watch them from the other side of the street. They'll take photographs of what they come out, because usually, fashion designers wear their own clothes. I design as well, and I realized this was going on because I designed my own clothes. There were a number of times that we saw witnesses and myself came running to me and showed me pictures of somebody wearing something that I'd created myself on the front cover in a magazine, and it had a slogan like, "Ideas to steal," and they make it blatant. It's all blatantly being done.
Well, you know what they say, the best way to hide something is to put it right in front of your face.
Yeah, I mean, all this is all plain sight. And, when we look at the 7/7 issue, which we'll come into in a minute, you'll see how blatant the whole thing was, what later transpired. Now, as I was trying to expose this, because as I said, it's a covert slave trade. What they're doing is raping people's minds. They're raping people's ideas. And they actually even had a program about it. There's a woman called June Sarpong, who was a presenter on Channel 4.
Yeah, she actually, it was over with Jesse Ventura as a presenter, and Jesse Ventura, yeah. She was on Channel 4, yeah.
Yeah, she moved over from Channel 4. Obviously, she probably figured out what was going on and moved to the side of exposing a lot of things. But she had a program which was basically on the secret intelligence industry. And what she exposed on this program is everything that I'm talking about now, which is the whole machinery behind this covert industry, which is stealing the lives of people and actually putting them under surveillance over long periods of time, taking conversations, converting these conversations into mainstream movie productions. I can tell you, besides my work, I can tell you a number of productions that came directly from the bugging of my house. Like, for instance, if you came to my home and were talking about a personal issue with me, let's say that you saw a pig flying. That's quite an unusual thing to happen, right?
Yeah.
So if you were talking to me about that, and it freaked you out or whatever, and the next thing you'll see is somebody that looks like you, has your name, and the whole film is about a pig flying. About what you've discussed with me. This is blatantly how it's being carried out.
We have another question for you there, Seven, if you want to take it.
Yes, of course.
Yes, Steve?
Yeah, just as a continuation from the previous question in relation to the money. Crown Copyright wonders, if money wasn't on the table, why didn't they just go down the kidnap route and kidnap you?
Well, we'll go into that. I've been in hiding 3 times, actually. Once for 3 months prior to the London bombings, and I was later smuggled to a Notting Hill Gate police station, and further on from that, I've been in hiding 2 further times for 6 months. And, you've got to keep your wits about you because anything could happen. I have no doubt in my mind that they wanted me dead. And had I not have gone into hiding at the times that I went into hiding, I don't think I would be telling this story with you now.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so that basically that's to answer your question. You know, you've got to keep your wits about you. And I'm a very spiritual person. And so I have what's called a sixth sense, you know, a strong intuition, and you've got to use it. You've got to rely on those things when your life is in danger. And running up to my court case, I began to realize that this was getting very dangerous, as I said. And I started trying to get help from other lawyers, etc., but they told me that the whole sort of legal world had closed ranks on me, and that I was very known, and that if I was to want to get help by anybody, I should change my name, not give people my real name over the phone, etc., etc. Anyway, what actually happened was somebody found out about a woman in America who has a case as well. Her name is Sophia Stewart. Now, she has a case around the movie called The Matrix, which was stolen from her by the Wisconsin brothers. I think it's called the Wisconsin brothers. I never pronounced it correctly. Wisconsin, something like that. Anyway,
Okay.
two brothers that made the Matrix movie. Anyway, they stole the script from Sophia, and she, alongside of me, had a big case as well. And she was a paralegal, and people said I should get in contact with her because she may be able to help me. So around May of 2005, April, May of 2005, I got in contact with her. And of course, I couldn't speak to her because the lines kept being shut down. I managed to have like 5 minutes, and then the phone would go down, and then I'd have to ring her back. She was based in Salt Lake City, and wasn't able to talk much with her, but she explained that her case was going on and that she was very close to winning it as well, and she was trying to connect me, I think, with some people that would help me. Because in her case, she had the FBI on her side, but what I actually had was corrupt police officers. One of the police officers, a man called D.S. Stallard, Detective Sergeant Stallard, he was appointed around May of 2004 to arrest the people involved in my case and, shut the whole cartel down. But he did nothing. He got paid, I believe, to cover things up. And when we got the crime file, which is a massive crime file, he was doctored quite a lot of the crime logs so that, chief detectives and sergeants didn't come forward to interview us, because I reported, I've been to the police about 65 times, if not more, on this subject, and you'll see that from the report because I've got all the crime logs, they're all inside the report, and I have had no help whatsoever. Myself and witnesses have appealed and begged the police for help, and they've done absolutely nothing. When my house was burgled, I called 999, a police officer showed up, and then he got a call, like, as he was on my premises, and he was obviously told not to record anything, not to do anything, and he said, "I'm sorry, but I've just been told to leave this one alone." And so he just left it, so there was my house burgled, and again, I didn't get any help from the police. So I had to appeal to other people, and Sophia Stewart was one of the people that I appealed to. Now, by this stage, and we're talking April of 2005, April, May 2005, there was a whole kind of Simon Says type situation going on. So everything I was doing was being converted into TV shows in order to mock, humiliate, and sort of take the pee out of me, if you like. And so a couple of months later, when I opened a newspaper and saw that the people had stolen Sophia's material were now making a movie about blowing up the London trains, I could connect the dots very, very quickly because I understood the code that was being used, and I understood how this this thing, how they kind of gloated within mainstream media and were doing things in plain sight, I actually panicked and thought, I've got to do something. So I went back to the police and said, look, this is what's going on. There's a cartel within mainstream and law firms, and there's a very strong possibility that they're going to pull off something on the London trains. Police wouldn't do anything about it. I contacted Crime Stoppers and, all sorts of people to try to get help to put injunctions on them. Nobody would help me, so I ended up going to the magistrates courts in London, Marylebone Magistrates Court, in June of 2005. And I had to go back about 3 times to see somebody. I was like begging them, please let me see somebody because I want to put an injunction on the criminal cartel. Eventually I was able to see a clerk called Charles Rees, who again was in the magistrate's court, and I showed him my evidence. I said, look, there's a cartel within media that are carrying out crimes in real life and turning them into scripts and movie scripts, and I showed him evidence that it happened time and time again. I showed him evidence that my material had been stolen. I had showed him death threats. I'd shown him that I was to have a case which was to be heard the following month in August 2005. And there was a real threat of danger to the public, And when he saw what I showed him, he was absolutely winded. I was in tears, and there was no question that this man knew that I was authentic. He knew it wasn't some lunatic just showing up, just for the sake of it. He knew absolutely that this was a fact. I had the court documents showing that, my case reference number that was to be heard. There were doctors that were warning warning the courts that I was in danger, that my life was in danger. I had some very good doctors because, as I said, one doctor had the same thing happen to his daughter. So he was pretty much up to speed. So he wrote on my behalf to tell the courts that I was in danger, my home was being watched, and he knew the coup. So I showed this to Charles Rees. I showed so much evidence to him. And what he said was, I had 2 options. My first option was I could take action against the police to make them take action and arrest the cartel. The second option was that I could take action against the high courts, to make the high courts take action against the police, to make the police, to demand that the police arrest the criminal cartel. Now, I had a case, as I said, which was scheduled some weeks away from that particular time, middle of June 2005, and so there was no way I had time to mount proceedings now against the police as well. There are 10 defendants in my case, and I'll read the names out as well after I finish kind of summarizing what happened. And basically, I just knew that there was no way I would have time to do all the things that needed to do and still attend to my court case. So the only thing I could do was to go into hiding. And it was a horrible situation. I really can't explain the level of nightmare it was for me. As I said, I'm an ordinary person. I've never been involved in any criminal activities. It's a foreign world to me. I didn't know anything about that, So I was thrust into a situation of enormity and had to think very much on my feet, had to use intuition, and I had to stay strong. I couldn't crumble. So basically I did go into hiding, and I barricaded myself inside. As I was in there for about 3 months, from mid-June till the 31st of August 2005, when I was smuggled to Notting Hill Gate police station in the middle of the night.
And who smuggled you there?
One of the witnesses, who happens to be a relative, who said, you're going to rot in here, you can't stay in here any longer, He went to court to try to get injunctions on my behalf so that I could attend my court case. But unfortunately, the judge, who's on the front cover of the report, there's a photograph of him. His name is Justice Blackburn. What he did was sneakily remove my name from the court list. Because I don't think that they ever envisaged, they weren't planning for me to go into hiding. I think they had a whole plan engineered for me. Because one of the things that was going on, remember I mentioned that guys were showing up at my property.
Yeah.
With fake council tax demands for me. And basically these documents are, quite a lot of them are in the report. You can have a look at them. But some of the ones that were at that period were all saying committal to prison. So they went from demanding large amounts of money to now trying to have me incarcerated. So they had a plan which was obviously engineered for me, and it got foiled by the fact that I went into hiding. They weren't expecting that to happen. I mean, it was a kind of a last-minute thing. I didn't premeditate it. I just knew that I was in danger and I had to protect myself somehow. And I didn't have police protection. I had a number of witnesses that knew what was going on, and really amazing people who have put their lives on the line for me. And so that's the only thing I had. I had some official people as much as my GP, who was aware of what was going on and had written to the courts about it. But there wasn't anybody, as far as the law is concerned, that came forward to put me on police protection or anything like that. So we were pretty much on our own. And so running up to the 7th of July, when the actual bombs went off, I was in hiding. I'd been in hiding by that time for at least 2 weeks, something like that, because I went in there from mid-June 2005, and so I discovered it on the news, and I collapsed. I was probably left on the floor I remained there for quite a while, I mean, the enormity of it all, that what I feared was going to happen actually did happen. And then what happened was one of the thugs that, they were showing up with these fake council tax. On the day of the bombings, they actually came up they broke into my house. They got into the front, the communal door downstairs, and they walked up the 3 landings, and they basically slipped a letter without an envelope, because prior to that they was always leaving the letters in the doorway downstairs, sort of in the communal parts, with an envelope. But on this occasion they came up the stairs and they slipped the letter underneath the door with no envelope, and it has the date of the bombings, and it was their coded way of telling me that they were behind it. And that was just another knife in the front of me, in the back of me. I mean, I can't really physically or explain the enormity of this. Now, at the same time, my house was literally under siege. There were surveillance vans all outside my house, and I live on a crescent street, which is tiny. It has 7 houses on either side of the road, so you can see either side of the road, the street, from any window, or, from main windows in my house. You can look out and see both ends of the street. And this tiny street had loads of surveillance vans just stationed there, And I saw my street on CNN News. I saw my road on BBC. I mean, it was a horror story. It was a horror story of all horror stories. This was a snuff movie. It was like a reality-style horror movie that they were playing in real life.
Would you say it's like the... no, I haven't seen this, but I hear people talking about the Truman Show.
Yes, you've got it bang on. And in fact, if you look at the TV schedules, you'll see that they were playing the Truman Show all at that time as well. Because unless you knew what was really going on, all of that stuff would slip your head. You'd think, well, you wouldn't make the connection. And like I said, this was all being done in the plain sight. The bus, there was a bus, number 30 bus, which was left on Russell Square, I believe. And Russells, you've got to pay attention to the names. It had outright terror, bold and brilliant, on the side of the bus. This is the kind of blatancy that these people were doing it. It was being done in your face. And because they consider themselves untouchable, and that people at that time, I mean, now people know with the likes of Sandy Hook and all the other things that have gone on, There's a lot of great investigative journalists out there, just citizens like us, people like us that have just said, look, there's something going on here, and they've done some great research. And so now people are hip to what's going on. But at that time, I think it wasn't as well known as it is today that, you have these fake kind of drills and stage setups being made to look like a terror attack. That's actually, it's Hollywood. It's basically, like I said, it's a snuff movie. It's a reality-style snuff movie with real people being murdered. And for them, it's hilarious. It's a game. To them, it's just all just a massive laugh. And you had people involved in my case, Jeffrey Bindman, Tamsin Allen. I'm going to give everybody a list of people involved in the case so that you can understand. Basically, there's a legal firm called Bindman and Partners involved. And the reason they got involved was because I went to them. They were one of the law firms that I went to in relation to the first sort of tier of thefts of my documents. Now, when I went to see Tamsin Allen about my case and I showed her all the evidence, I wrote a confidentiality because I was aware that, people were going to give the evidence to the other side. So I said to her, look, I'm going to give you this, show you this evidence, but I want you to sign a confidentiality. Now, I printed it out, but I actually had the disk with me in case she wanted to amend anything. Now, on this floppy disk, that shows you how old it is, floppy disk. On this floppy disk had a script, which I wrote called The Walk. In that meeting, she stole this floppy disk. And obviously, she went onto the disk and saw that I had a movie script on there, and that's how that became traded as well. So in the process, so you have a first wave of things that were stolen, and then you had a second wave of things that were stolen, because she obviously saw that there was a great deal of money being made by the whole scam going on, and wanted in. So she started trading my script. The next thing I knew, excuse me, I saw aspects of my script all over the place. And it's a true story. It was based on somebody I knew. It was based around a shoe shop was in Edgware Road for 30 years prior to Tamsin Allen stealing the script. When they found out that it was all based on a true story, they not only shut the shop down, they actually bulldozed the site to remove any trace that shoe shop actually existed.
That's I will say that's an incredible level to go to. Now, we have a few questions coming in, Seven, if you don't mind answering them.
No, not at all.
We got a message on our TNS chat facility from TRP saying, by the way, Alan and Steve, you consistently have intriguing shows. Thanks. Well, thanks, TRP. That's very nice of you to say that. But I'll pass you over to Steve because there's people... you had another question there, did you? There was a question there about the house bugging.
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, Steve.
That was just Crown Copyright was wondering how did they actually bug your house, but then he later typed up that it was obviously when you were in hiding that they were able to do this.
No, they actually bugged my house from before. The house was broken into. They removed the locks on my door. There's a photograph. I just find you what page it is on, because in the report I produced photographs of everything so that people could see for themselves. Now, if you go into the bugging of my home, if you go onto the report, and we're talking the Farrell report, and that's FARRELL report, thefarrellreport.net. And what you want to pick up is the main report. There's two sides to the report. There's the main report and there's the appendices. The appendices have the court documents. It's got the affidavits. It contains a record of all the times that I went to the police station. It's got additional information. It's got witness statements from 3 other witnesses. There are 14 witnesses in total, but because of the scale of all this, we just couldn't put 14 statements. There's so much evidence. What we've condensed in the 2 reports are actually in the appendices and the actual main report is scaled down from thousands of documents. It was a massive case against 10 defendants called 7 versus Gossage and 9 others. So effectively, it was 10 defendants, individuals as well as corporations, and I'll read you about that. But as far as the bugging is concerned, if you go into the main report and you go on to page 143, you will see a photograph of the bugging, a reading from the bugging of my home. You will see some of the kind of examples of this gang stalking operation. For instance, I had scaffolding left on my building up until very, very recently, until this report was going to be released. I had scaffolding on my home for almost 17 months. No work was being done, and I believe that was to carry out a hit and create some sort of excuse of what happened to me. And so this scaffolding was just left there, and it's just been a mad situation. But you can see the bugging. You can see photographs of the door, of my door, battered, locks being removed, chiseled, drilled into. There's photographs of that. There's a photograph of my water, men showing up while I was in hiding. I basically heard, I was inside my living room and I heard the rumbling of pipes underneath my floorboards. At that time, I'd been in hiding something like 6 months. This is, I think, the last time. This was in December of 2010, 7th of December 2010. And basically, I heard rumbling underneath my pipes. And so what I did was looked outside the window, and I saw these guys at my front door, and the photograph is there for you to see. And they were basically trying to poison my water supply. And you'll see a picture of the water, which is poisoned. It's so blatant. I mean, even Tony was just completely shocked. When he saw it all, he could not believe how blatant the whole thing has been. It's not even been done in disguise. They do it really in your face. And so I wanted to put the photographic proof as much as possible. As I said, there's so much proof. There's so much evidence, but we had to scale it down so that people can digest it, because it's a big story and you've got to make it so that it can be digested. It's also something that, an area which a lot of people are not familiar with, gang stalking and how the whole thing takes place. But for those people that are not familiar, you can Google gang stalking, or you can go to www.gangstalkingworld.com, or there's Organized Crime Waves. There's another one called surveillancesissues.com. So there's a lot of information out there about the phenomena, because it is a phenomena that is affecting hundreds of people in the UK. I've had lots of people write to me about their story. In fact, today, a friend of Kate from Critical Mass Radio said her story was very similar to mine. So that just goes to show you, and that was this evening. I got an email from her explaining that she's been suffering the similar things that I've been suffering. And it's not unique. It sounds to some people like, wow. But, you know, once you see the magnitude of how many people are being abused in this way, you realize it's actually rife. This abuse is rife, and that's what, you know, another reason why people are using these surveillance operations. It's to silence people. In one aspect, creative people are being used as a battery force, if you like, battery power, to create revenue for this machine. And then on the other hand, you have whistleblowers being targeted to keep tabs on them so they can obstruct all possibilities of the truth that whistleblower may have from becoming public knowledge. So for me, I have situations like I speak on the radio and, you know, sometimes before I get to the show, the whole station's taken down. That happens all the time, you know, so there are different reasons why, the things play out as they do. But you've got to remember, these are telecommunications companies that have the capabilities to do this with ease. It's not difficult for them to do it. They do it every day. So just to go back to the story so that I just sort of get to the end of what happened, summarize it anyway. So during my time in hiding, by the 22nd, I believe, of July, we know that the Brazilian guy, John Charles, was shot 7 times in the head. Now, everybody knows my name is Seven, but my family name is John Charles. So, for me, it was a warning, when I looked at the whole situation, because they were aware that I had told lots of people that they were going to carry out these bombings, and I don't think they knew that I wasn't going to come out of the house, that I was going to barricade myself in. And after like a week or 2 weeks of me barricading myself in, the next thing I saw was somebody with my family name shot 7 times publicly on the television, and it was all made out to be Muslims, and the whole Muslim element came into the game, and I thought, this is absolute nonsense. It's absolute lies. Those Muslim guys were innocent. They had nothing to do with any of it. It's a whole lot of lies. And anybody working inside media that has an ounce of integrity or honesty will tell you that.
Well, I think there was issues there, even with the photos, where Photoshop. You can see that it was photoshopped. We have about 20 minutes, Seven, just to let you know.
Okay.
Now, there is a question here that's come in from TRP on the TNS chat facility, and he wants to know, does she have any predictions for the future? Sounds like a mediumistic, but do you, based on what you know and the work you've done, do you have any predictions or any ideas about?
Oh, that's a big one. It's an interesting question. Well, I think that we are getting to the point where, if we haven't reached critical mass already in the awakening and the veil being pulled up on all this stuff, if we haven't already reached that critical mass, we're soon to meet that critical mass. And once we do, we're going to be in a whole different playing field. Right now, we've got terrified people who know what they've done. They've killed innocent people. 2 of them potentially being my friend, 2 friends of mine. The day I actually met Tony Farrell, it was the day he contacted me, because I met him at a protest on the 1st of May last year, 2012, outside the IPCC, which is the Independent Complaints Commission in London, and there was a massive demonstration about police corruption, and I was one of the people that picked up the mic and exposed what was going on within the police as far as my case and 7/7 was concerned. And after I finished speaking, Tony Farrell came up to me and he said, "Could you mind if I call you sometime? My name is Tony Farrell, and I'm the principal intelligence officer, and I was asked to lie and fake that the terror threat was coming from Muslims. I find what you've been talking about fascinating. I would like to, hear more about it." I said, "Sure." I gave him my number. He contacted me on the 17th of May, and on the 17th of May, 2 of my friends were died in mysterious circumstances on the same day, hours apart. Neither of them knew each other, but they were all helping me to expose the truth in some way or another. So they are assessed within the report as well. But just to kind of, I just feel like they're getting desperate. That's a very desperate move to do. And they're desperate because they know it's about to all end. They know it's about to transform. We that have knowledge should speak it. We must come out and speak it fearlessly. If anybody out there knows the truth, no matter who ridicules you, who tries to persecute you, who calls you a liar, who calls you insane. It doesn't matter what people say. If it's true and you've seen it and it's happened to you, if you've been threatened, if you've been targeted, you've got to speak it, because in order for us to heal, in order for us to transcend what is happening, is that we've got to lance the boil. We've got to get all the filth to rise to the surface so that we can clean it up. Because we cannot build on a situation where you have such atrocities being done against innocent people.
Totally agree. We are well aware of the targeted, what's going on, the domestic rape or silent rape. We have spoke to Lars Jurtgard and Jesse Beltran about them. So we're actually involved. Myself and Steve do kind of help, offering to help people to be scanned if they want to be scanned over here. So we have been quite involved in that side of thing, because we are aware of it. But we have another question for you from one of our listeners there, Steve.
Yeah, just also going back a bit, I'm guessing that there was a question in relation to the scaffolding that was put up on your home, but I think you said there was a communal door, so I'm guessing it was like was it a duplex, or was it a block of flats, or... But if someone poisoned your water, would other people in the building, were other people poisoned as well?
No, they actually targeted my water supply, which is why the pipes, they obviously, because this is done on the state level. So I live in a social housing, and so you'd have the plans to how that property is, how it's all structured, they'd have the architectural plans.
Yeah.
To know where the piping to my water supply, which is where, because I only knew because I heard the piping making sounds underneath, and I thought, what's going on here? When I looked outside the window, and you'll see photographs of that. If you go to page 142 of the report and 143, you will see the scaffolding and the guys outside digging into my water supply, and the actual water itself, which is like milk, it's like diluted milk. You can see it. It's sticky. When you pour the water out, it's like sticky, putrid water, And as far as the scaffolding is concerned, because it's done on a state level, my housing association called Genesis Housing became complicit in the gang stalking operation. So effectively, they were giving direct access to me, using the credentials. There were staff inside Genesis Housing, a guy called Miles Langan, Elizabeth Milner. Elizabeth Milner, actually, while I was in court in 2006, she showed up at my property and said, that they were going to change all the alarms to being this new system. Of course, in 2006, I was a veteran as far as surveillance was concerned, so I knew exactly what it was. It's so obvious. They're kind of thick, these people. They think they're really, steps ahead, but they're absolutely thick. They do it so blatantly in your face. The only thing that they have in their advantage is they've got so much access to stolen money, and they've got loads of common purpose members in official positions who are all on the payroll. So the policy of lie and deny is what you'll get wherever you go. If you go to complain or whatever, everybody's in on it, sort of thing.
The one thing that I find hard to understand, and maybe it's just my own, moral conscience, but, for somebody to be paid to go and harass somebody and know that you're doing it. I am a big believer of karma, and I think at the end of the day, all that karma is going to come back. It's definitely going to come back. But for the time being, you have to put up with it. But I just, for these people to be paid and know what they're doing and think what they're doing is right, I just think that's,
Well, we said before, they're not paid to think, and this is classic, I'm just doing my job.
Exactly, yeah, well, this is it. Do you have any questions there, Steve?
No, it's just a comment. I wasn't going to bother reading this now because I figure we're kind of coming to the end, but I'll just throw it out there. 7, Crown Copyright again. He's one of our more. I'm not saying anyone is less intelligent than Crown Copyright, but he seems to know a lot of information. I suspect he's very highly educated. But he was just wondering about the water supply coming in. Again, he reckons that the water supply, if somebody was digging in your garden, that no matter what kind of housing it was, there'd be one main supply coming in, and then it will be branched off to the different, say, houses or the different apartments or flats internally inside the building.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it's a communal stucco building where it was once a big house, but they're converted into flats. And they're all sort of this inside the building. I think there are 5 flats, and I'm on the 3rd floor. And so what you'll see in the photographs of on the page 142 and 143 of the report is a photograph of the guys at the front door in the water supply. Okay. And basically then you've got a photograph following that of the water that was coming out of the taps. Now, I asked my neighbours whether or not they had problems with their water supply, and they don't. It's just my water supply that was tampered with. And interestingly enough, when they put the surveillance system in, there's a guy in the basement who has a different entrance from me. They didn't bother to put it into his building. They said, basically, when this woman, Elizabeth Milner, showed up from Genesis Housing Association, or Genesis Housing Group, she said, we've got to change the smoke alarms because Westminster City Council have made it mandatory for all the flats in Westminster to now have this new system. But it was just going to go into my part of the building. Not even the basement had it, and I know all the neighbours, not every resident, but I know, many neighbours in that neighbourhood. It's a close community. I'm friendly. I'm a warm person, so I say hi to everybody, and lots of people know about my situation because it's been blatant, so people look out for me as well. And they didn't want to put it in anybody else's building. They just put it in my building. So it is very selective, as in relation to the water supply. Because it's done on a state level, they can pull up the plans and see exactly where the water supply is going because it's in the street front. I don't have a garden. I'm on the on the 3rd floor in a type of stucco building. It's sort of not Victorian, but you'll see photographs anyway within the report of what the building looks like.
Okay, well I was just going to say to you there, we have about 8 minutes or so left, 7.
Okay.
Tell us about what's happening now and what's the plan for the future.
Well, what's happening now is the report has gone out, and we encourage every listener, please, 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 have a look at the report, help it to get viral, because that's the only way we're going to change things. I've been to court. I won my case in 2006. There are audios of the court case. It's all been covered up. And, for the future, we see that this will be the catalyst, or one of the catalysts, because there are many cases out there of many victims, some of them, not able to get their stories out there. And I consider myself very fortunate. So I ask everybody to support and use this so that we can create change. The only way we can create change is if these types of things going on come out into the wider public. And once it does, and they fess up, it will be, it will help to change the situation. We need reforms in media. We need investigations into the media, not Leveson inquiry alone. And I want to read out the names of the people. We've got Christopher Gossage from Russell's Media Law Firm, Richard Hanna, who was from Clarion MTL, which are Virgin Media. We've got Helen Mary Alexander, Jim Manson, who were from Scottish Media Groups, which is now called Scottish TV. You've got Tamsin Allen from Byman and Partners, who is now on the team of the Leveson inquiry, and Derek Rosenblatt, Ronald Fletcher and Co., and Christopher Bourne. All of these people have position themselves into positions of power. Like you see with Tamsin Allen, she's now in the Leveson inquiry. And if you go onto the Byman and Partners website, they now act for terrorists. It's, they've got a whole section on terrorism. And these people are actually doing it themselves. It's just so brazen. So we need everybody to investigate these people, get the information out there on behalf of all the families who have died, and so that we can create change. In Ireland, I'll just quickly say this, in Ireland you had the Magdalene laundries, which was addressed in the Irish Parliament. Do you remember, quite recently?
Yeah, that's right.
And there was a tearful testimony of a MP, I can't remember his name. And when I saw that, I was in tears, because I saw that potentially that's what's going to happen with this report. I believe a report was done into the Magdalene laundries cover-up. And I hope that this report will, achieve the same thing, with the British government admitting their complicity in what really happened behind 7/7 and the murder of John Charles and 5 other people, being the judge in my case, Pumphrey. He's now since been found dead in 2007, and Sarah Mulvey, who was a Channel 4 executive, a very young woman who was used to sell my stolen work. She was found dead in 2010. 2 of my friends have been found dead, Malcolm Moore and actually Howard Etchells, and also, of course, John Charles Menendez, as well as the 52 people. So I ask people, please, please, please help this to go viral on behalf of all of those people. I feel I have a duty to speak about this for nothing else but for this reason, So I'm grateful for you guys giving me the opportunity to do that. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And see the other movies, Ripple Effect, made by John Anthony Hill, who was imprisoned for trying to speak the truth about 7/7. Have a look at the Ripple Effect. That's actually on the site of the Farrell report, along with Colestron and Farrell are dead. Sorry, that's another film. And there's another film called The Offensive. There's quite a few films exposing 7/7, and there's some videos with the courtroom audios. So please, please have a look at the FarrellReport.net. So that's www.thefarrell.net report, and share it with everybody. Thank you.
Well, that's okay. We just got a nod from Vin from TNS. We stream on TNS Radio, which is another radio station in Ireland, and we also stream on UWS, which is United We Strike over in America. So at the moment, 7, you're going out on 3 radio stations, 2 in Ireland and 1 in America at the moment.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm in touch. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's okay, no problem at all. Now, obviously, I know what you're working with Tony to obviously do other radio stations, and I know you're planning to get your message out there and get what happened out there, which is a good thing, obviously. And I do feel, when I said to you that what you see for the future, I mean, we have seen, we had John Anthony Hill on our show when he was under house arrest in the UK. And we had Tony on the show as well. So we've been
Tony Farrell.
Tony Farrell, yeah.
Wow.
So we've been around the block. We've been doing this for nearly 3 years now, and we've had a lot of the people on, and we work with but we link up with other radio stations. And as I say, we work with had Jesse and Lars on about the targeted people, and had Deborah Dupree on talking about targeted people as well. She's a human rights journalist. So we've done quite a lot on this, and again it's getting the word out. But we're now in 2013, and I think the light is beginning to shine. I think people are beginning to wake up en masse. I mean, one of the reports that I read today on the internet, kind of sidetracking a little bit, but 75% of the people in Ireland anyway are unhappy with the government and what's going on now. I know that's kind of away from what you're doing, but I think that's a massive awakening. I don't think any time in Ireland ever, apart from the early days, have people being unhappy with what's going on. And I think the UK is the same. I think people are just saying, right, enough's enough. So maybe 2013 will be the year of something will happen. What have you got planned now? What way you are, without giving away too much, what's your way forward?
Well, I've been fortunate to work not just with Tony Farrell, who's an amazing guy, but Ray Savage as well. Ray is an anti-terrorist intelligence officer as well. And these are very deeply spiritual people who recognize that we have a small window, because you've got one hand of humanity, a small, very small aspect of humanity that have stolen the rest of the world's economic wealth and are using it to wage war against us. And, where we are now is that we're hitting critical mass. And so where I see is relation to the Mayan calendar, lots of people were waiting for something to happen in 2012. But, we know that the Gregorian calendar has been messed up anyway. And so, time is not exactly as, you can't have it to the minute like 2012, etc. But I know, like you're saying, 2013, this is a pivotal point in history. It really is. There is a mass consciousness that is growing, the need for a more moral, God-fearing, if you like, society. Unfortunately, because we still have people wired into the mainstream lies, we still have the human traffic still paying attention to that. They still kind of, in a very small, insignificant way, I think, are still, muddying the waters, if you like. But more and more people are breaking away from mainstream media. And so for myself, Ray Savage and Tony Farrell and a lot of the great, great people that I'm working with at the moment, and I feel blessed because I feel they're an answered prayer for anybody who doesn't believe that there is a God and that there are angels. I beg to differ with you. God is very, 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 very real. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. And so I really feel for the future right now, we as a humanity have to, become more loving, become more conscious, and we have to build alternatives. That paradigm, the whole mainstream media paradigm, it's a dying dinosaur. It's on its way out.
Well, we call it the junk media. But listen, I have quick hit questions for you here. There's a few questions coming in, and we're being asked. Okay. Please ask her. So here you go. Okay. If you can do a quick answer to these questions, that would be great.
Okay.
Let me see. He says, OYM, please ask if she has contacted Russia Today, Press TV or Al Jazeera.
No, I haven't as yet, but if you want to contact and send them this video, send them the link to the report, please do. We're quite a small team of people, and it's growing, like Tony Z from synchronicityradio.com. He has been absolutely awesome in putting me in touch with you guys. And I'm relying on the goodwill of the people to come forward and help us in this way. But, there is a cover-up of a massive scale around this. And, they've even got a site on, there's a man called Mark Windows who's writing absolute horrible things to debunk the report so that people won't pay attention. So it's going to really require support from everybody out there, and if you think Russia Today and Al Jazeera and Press TV could be instrumental, send them, get everybody to send it to them. If they get it from everybody, they'll have to pay attention.
Exactly.
If I send it on my own, they probably won't,
No, I totally agree. Okay, next question. Quick hit questions now, quick fire round as they call it.
Okay.
You forgot to ask her about her Spice Girls experience.
Spice Girls experience? Yeah. I don't have a Spice Girl experience.
Okay, that's probably a question for another show, I think. Maybe, I don't know what they mean by that. Okay. I know you work in the music business, but obviously you had nothing got to do with them. Okay, let me go back to another question here. does she think she's being harassed by intelligence people or military or some other group?
All of the everybody on that list. My neighbours told me that they saw the military opposite had sort of taken over a building, and the whole surveillance operation. In fact, Tony Farrell, this is very, very quick. I'll get this in because there was recently on the 27th of February another false flag directly opposite my house. Now they had co-opted a hotel which is facing my building, and when Tony Farrell got involved, he started to be under surveillance, and as they could see that he wasn't backing off, they started showing themselves to him, you know, from the window. And he was quite horrified, and I think he was really, you know, taken back. Anyway, probably military, definitely intelligence. But anyway, once Tony wouldn't back down, they burnt the building down, and it took 120 firefighters. You can Google this. If you Google, probably on Channel 4 it will come up, but fire in West London on the 27th of February this year. You'll see that there was a massive fire, but it's in the report. And once again, they had put up a big placard saying burn the floor down, and it's now a big production. A lot of you will see a lot of billboards go up, burn the floor down. After they burnt this floor down, they put that up everywhere. So that's the kind of thing that's going on. But yes, yes, yes to the questions, basically.
Okay. How are we doing for time with Finn there, Steve? We're just checking our time, because we do stream on, as I say, another radio station at the moment, and we have to hand over to them guys. How are we doing? Okay, Steve's going to check that out there. Brilliant. Well, it's fantastic I have to say, it is fantastic having you on the show. Thanks for all the information that you've given us there. I mean, you know what happened? We're supposed to have another guest on, and it's great that you can actually, you told us so much about what's going on, and in a way it worked out quite well. So obviously it was meant to be.
Yeah,
now, obviously, we will catch up with our other guests and find out. We just rescheduled that interview. Obviously, she's busy doing her thing. But I wasn't aware. I knew a little bit of information of what you'd be talking about. But, you know, just a very, very little bit. But I found it fascinating. And a lot of people on the chat facility are saying, well done, fantastic, great information, and good luck. Long live Seven is one of them here. Good on Seven for fighting back and not giving up. So you're getting loads of support from people here on the...
Thank you to everybody. You don't know how much that means. You know, I knew one day I'd get here to the point where, you know, I'd cross the other side of the darkness, you know, and I feel like I see the light, you know, the light is around. I'm surrounded by light and angels and so many loving, beautiful people. So I'm just like overwhelmed right now. I'm so overwhelmed because I always knew it would be possible to get here, and it's taken me 10 years almost of a lot of pain and a lot of very, very dark moments. But out of it, I really pray that something very good comes out of this that will transform the way that we live today to being the way that we all want to live, you know.
Well, I think
peace and respect for everybody.
Definitely, I totally agree, and I think you should be on UK column as well with Brian.
I have been on there.
Have you?
The 31st of January 2013. Brian Garish has been absolutely amazing. He actually came to see the scaffolding on my building. He took photographs. He came to see where they were surveillancing Tony. Shortly after that, they burnt the building down. But he came and took photographs and then had me on his show. And since that time, he's been maligned by a guy called Mark Windows and another guy called Dominic, who posted lots of lies about Brian Garish, about myself and Tony Farrell. So Brian Garish has been an absolute support to me. Have a look at it on the 31st of January. If you go onto UK Column website, you will see that interview with myself and Tony Farrell. But it's also on the Farrell Report website. You can see a copy of the interview as well. So check that out, and again, send it around to make it viral, please. You'll also probably notice on Brian Garish's website all the hateful comments that I've had, to deal with, and it's just part of the gang stalking. They spread rumors, they spread lies, they spread deceit, they try to make you look like you're an absolute nutter, non-compos mentis, which is far from the truth. There's nothing wrong with my sanity. It's always insane people that try to make the same look,
Exactly.
insane.
You just get trolls all the time. Well, listen, Seven, that's fantastic. Thanks a lot for coming on. And obviously
Thank
we will,
you.
maybe in a few months' time, we'll catch up with you again. I'm going to pass you over to Steve because we're going to have just a few minutes. Okay, Vin just said just a few minutes. But while we have a few minutes, a question did come in, and very quickly, if you can answer this. Who is this Mark? Is it Mark Waters?
Mark Windows.
Mark Windows. Who is he?
Well, basically, when I met Tony Farrell, the first time he came to my house and he wanted to film me, so he called Mark Windows, who poses to be a truther, but in fact is an anti-truther. And what he did, he filmed me very, very tearful, and Tony Farrell was tearful as I told the story, and then we never got to see it. So basically, I called another guy, and this guy called Stan, and he made another interview, filmed another interview with Tony Farrell and myself. And this guy, Mark Windows, showed up and started deleting things from the video. And then I got suspicious about him. I thought, well, why would he be deleting things? And he started saying to me, don't talk about 7/7, don't talk about your courtroom audios. And he was trying to remove all of it and edit it out of the video. So I told Tony Farrell, there's something really weird about this guy. But it's only up until going on to the UK column that he's now started a whole offensive about me. I don't even know the guy. I mean, I've seen him probably a handful of times, maybe 3 times in total. I don't know. I've never had a real deep conversation with him other than, to talk about finishing the video that he made. He never let us see the video that he filmed. But what we think happened was that when he realized that he got on to finding out the person behind 7/7, the victim, one of the victims behind 7/7, and obviously my case, because I won my case, I think he went to the criminal cartels with the footage and probably asked, how much do you want for this? And they probably offered him money. I mean, it's the only conclusion we can come to see so much hatred be put out there. And basically, I think he has been offered something to motivate what we're now seeing. Now, he's written stuff saying that I'm paranoid schizophrenic, I'm a fantasist, I'm down with 7, none of this to my face, and he's had this posted on something called the Kent Freedom Movement. They didn't give me any opportunity to reply. Tony Farrell's written to them, Brian, I think, as well, has written and said, can we have a right of reply here? If you're going to post things up about someone, at least give them the opportunity to respond to it. And I haven't been given the opportunity at all. And it appears that this Mark Windows has got a sidekick called Dom. It appears that they are, sort of in trying to help usher in the New World Order. And they've been sort of co-opting, because it's come out that they've done it in a lot of different places. So people beware. If you see this guy show up and try to make out that he's in for truth and stuff, you've got to be really careful, because what he does, he gets into the fold of an organization, he wins your confidence over, and then basically spreads rumors and lies about you so that, you will be discredited. And right now, he's trying to discredit Tony Farrell. I mean, this is the most upstanding man you could ever find. He should be the chief of command in the police services. That's how amazing Tony Farrell is. And to see what they've written about him is so disgusting. Tony Farrell has risked his life to do this. He really has. There have been some terrifying moments for him. And if you watch the video, if you go onto the Farrell report, there is a video where he talks about this. It's a very short video, so it's not too long and time consuming, but have a watch of that, because it shows you what he's gone through to make this report happen. And for this guy, Mark Windows, to go around and slander the likes of him and upstanding people like Brian Garish, it's just despicable. It's really not on, you know. I mean, as for me, I don't care if I'm ridiculed or not. I'm speaking the truth. I have a right to speak the truth. I have a right to my life. And those who died have, you know, their families have a right to know what happened to them. You know, if any one of you out there this had happened to, you know, and you would want to know what happened to your family members. Why did this happen? That gives me a responsibility, you know, whether I want to do it or not. There are moments when I want to just stay in my house and shut the door, shut the curtains and not speak to anyone. It's not fun for me doing this. I have a responsibility to do it on behalf of those who don't know what happened. And so, I mean, the monetary side is another thing entirely. I am owed a great deal of money, but I see that money as the money of the people. And once that money does get returned, it will be used for humanity in some way so that we can build something else.
Definitely.
But now, it's more about, you know, it's not about the micro. We've got to stop this whole thing about it's all about me. It's not all about me. It's not all about any individual. It's about all of us.
Definitely, and I think we have to, you know, we all have a kind of moral compass in this area, in the truth movement, and the moral compass is what keeps us going. But listen, we're going to finish up, Seven. We have to finish up the show. But thanks for coming on. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's just going to do the roundup with you.
Okay, thank you. What's your name?
What's my name? Alan.
Hey, Alan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
That's no problem. Thanks for, you know, having the courage to carry on with this and, you know, to put up with what you put up with, because it's obviously very difficult, you know, speaking to targeted people and people that have been harassed like this. It is very difficult, especially when families involved. But, you know, again, you know, keep up the good work, and we'll probably be getting Tony on again anyway. But let me just pass you over to Steve anyway, and take care of yourself. Stay safe. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you.
He keeps passing you over and then he keeps taking you back. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, we've had a lot, Seven. We've had a lot of good comments coming up on the chat box saying that the information is powerful stuff. Some of the comments are saying that there will have to be a part 2 of this interview, and I actually agree with Alan. I mean, if things had went to plan, we would have had Aisling on first, and then the time that would have been allocated to you, there is absolutely no way you would have got all covered as much as you did. And I think it would have been unfair to expect you to try and squeeze it all into a shorter space of time. And I mean, even now, I get the feeling that there's a lot more. I mean, you seem to be a good person to have a good conversation, a good chat with. And I'd say we could probably do another 2 hours.
Yeah, but I didn't talk about the court process, because that's a whole story in itself. And this is a story. There's so many stories within this story. You could literally branch out into any aspect of it and, you know, have a whole story in itself. So, yes, you know, there's so much to be exposed.
That's going to be part 2, I think.
Okay.
We'll do a part 2. Steve?
Okie dokie. Right, I think Alan wants me to get your details, and I think it's normally just around this time, Seven, that we ask our guests if you have a website, a YouTube channel, or any other means, or whatever, how people can get in contact with you or find out more, not so much contact you, but find out more about your work. Do you have a book or a blog or anything like that?
Okay, well, as I said, the Farrell report would be the main website at the moment. We've got another one coming up, which is called Closure on Corruption. And I am basically building an alternative to mainstream media. That's what I'm embarking on for the future as a new platform that encompasses film, music, television, but from a conscious point of view. That's one of my next major projects. I've also got a musical project to do. I want to create 2 new musical genres, but that's a whole other thing. But you can get hold of me on that's the number 47, justice47 @gmail.com. That's one email. I've got a small team that answers emails for me, and then basically the Farrell report, where you can get it, and that's again, www.thefarrell FARRELL.net. So people can go on there. I ask everybody, please, 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 Twitter it, Facebook it, put it everywhere you can. If you want to do something to change what's happening, this will make a major dent. If they're paranoid that this is going to go viral and that this is going to hit mainstream, because once it hits mainstream, it will be like what happened with the News of the World scandal, the hacking.
Yep.
The News of the World folded the following day. Once it went out there, the company was folded, and that's what will happen once this goes viral and it becomes where the mainstream has to address it. You're going to have a situation on your hands where major companies like Virgin Media, big law firms that are luring members of the public in so that they can terrorize them. These companies are going to be shut down, and you're going to prevent a lot more cases like this, because unless they get shut down, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have more and more cases of families being destroyed by these people, because we're dealing with psychopaths. They don't have any remorse. This is a joke to them. The whole thing's like a massive laugh. That's why it's been in your face the whole time, So I ask people, check out the Farrell report. You can send me an email at justice47. That's the number 4, not the word 4. So justice47, SEVEN, @gmail.com. Send me an email. If you're going to be a hater, don't send me any emails.
Okay. Well, listen, Seven, thanks for coming on. Just to let you know that, again, we're getting great feedback from people saying her courage and suffering comes through. Thanks, Seven. Brilliant interview. You're such a brave woman. And some great feedback off people. But Seven, just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to...
And don't forget to say it now.
What?
Don't forget to say, you always say to the guest, and especially in Seven's case, you always say, stay safe.
Yeah, well, stay safe, as always, stay safe. But listen, stay with us for a minute. We're just going to turn your mic down for a minute. We just want to finish up at the end of the show, and then we'll just have a chat with you after. So just bear with us for a minute.
Can I just quickly say thank you to Tony Z, synchronicity.net as well. There's stuff on there, and Critical Mass, Kate from Critical Mass. Thank you, guys. Thank you to Tony Farrell, Ray Savage, John Anthony Hill. Thanks to everybody.
No problem. Okay, just stay with us there for a minute, and we'll be back to you in a minute, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to finish up. Finn is getting his guest ready. He should be ready in the next few minutes. So we'd just like to say thanks to Seven for coming on the show. Very good interview there. And basically, we're going to get the podcast up straight away, obviously, for the show. We'll let you know. Hopefully we should be back to normal next week, fingers crossed.
Back in Studio 1.
Back in Studio 1, fingers crossed we'll get the internet back up. Obviously, if you listened to the pod earlier on, you would have heard that my broadband cable in Studio 1 was actually purposely, maliciously cut for some reason. And obviously listening to that interview with Seven, you could put 2 and 2 together, but I'll let you decide on that one. Next week's show, we have Mark Impey, who's an international spiritual medium, and Mark is going to be telling us all about mediumship and the spiritual side of things, and about energy and what we should be doing. I know Mark personally as well, so he's going to be over here in Ireland for a few days. So I've asked him to come on the show, so me and Steve will do the interview with him. So listen, take care of yourself anyway. We better go. Let Vin take over the show. People dying to hear Vin. So for the time being, take care of yourself. Stay safe. For myself, Alan James, good night.
And for myself, Stephen George as well. Take care, and we'll do it all again next week. Bye-bye.
Open your mind.